I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Rocky Hill Board of Education held November 18th, 2020, 7 p.m. in the council chambers. This meeting is being live streamed to the Rocky Hill Public Schools website. Before we start tonight, I would just like to take a brief moment of silence in honor of Mr. Joseph Grabe. He was a Rocky Hill volunteer ambulance service member, a longtime resident of the town. He unexpectedly passed away this past week. For numerous years, he was an inspector for DMV as well as an Ellington police officer. So we're very sorry for Mr. Grabe's passing. I'd just like to take a moment of silence in honor of him. With that, I would ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone. We will start tonight's meeting with meeting open to the public, audience participation. Is there anyone here wishing to address the board tonight? Seeing no one, we can move on. We will move on to approval of the minutes, October 21st, 2021, Board of Education Executive Session, October 21st, 2021, Board of Education Meeting, November 10th, 2021, Board of Education Special Meeting. I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Tucker. Anyone that was not on the board that time that is not comfortable with approving or disapproving the minutes, please feel free to abstain. With that, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 9-0. Thank you. Correspondence, Dr. Zito, we have none, correct?
Actually, one recent letter, we have a resignation of a school psychologist.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It wasn't on the agenda because we got it late. She's moving out of state, actually, to Texas, so leaving the district, and we posted that vacancy. We've already hired a replacement. We had a really good candidate, but just want to notify the board.
Excellent, okay. Moving on, consent calendar. We have approval of the Rocky Hill class of 2022, graduation date Saturday, June 18th, 2022. Would anyone like this item removed from the agenda? Anyone like it off the consent calendar? Hearing none, I'll move to entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes 9-0. We have a graduation date, June 18th, 2022. Moving on to committee reports. Curriculum, Ms. Tucker.
No meeting's been held at this point. It'll be scheduled in the near future.
All right. Facilities, Mr. Gavin.
We had a meeting held on November 17th to review the current status of the Board of Ed projects.
Excellent. Any questions for Mr. Gavin regarding the Facilities Committee meeting? Hearing none. It was a very productive meeting. I will diverge into it a little bit. We talked about the GMS roof project.
Yep.
The plans as well for the GMS science labs. Mr. Zedegren gave a great overview of the CIP and the plan for that. That information will also move forward to the Finance Committee in the future, as well as to the full board for some final approvals regarding some projects in the pipeline. So very productive first meeting. I'm glad it was beneficial to all the members of the committee, so thank you. Finance, Ms. Tucker.
We'll also be meeting in the near future.
Meeting scheduled.
Mr. Slattery.
Nothing scheduled at this point, but we will be scheduling a meeting in the near future.
Okay. Special education, Mr. Slattery.
Same. Nothing. We have not met yet, but we'll be scheduling something in the near future.
All right. And Mr. Desai, correct counsel, my understanding is there'll be a meeting next month. So, all right. The committees that did not meet, any board members have any questions for anything regarding the committees that did not meet? I know we're just in the process of getting organized, so I anticipate that we will have meetings scheduled. Ms. Manella.
For finance, any idea as to when we will be meeting?
I think the chairs are reaching out to their assistant superintendent contacts, and then they'll coordinate as needed. So they're trying to get organized.
Okay,
Okay.
perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions regarding any committees? All right, excellent. Old business, Dr. Zito, I do not believe we have any on the agenda, correct?
No old business.
All right, we are moving on then to new business. Item 9, Assistant Superintendent for Personnel and Student Services. Ms. Stevenson.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I just have a few things to report out tonight. For those of you that are new on the board, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we have a staff member at the high school. She's a transition coordinator, and she works with the students that are still at the high school, not our students in the transition academy that are 18 to 22, but our students that are still in the high school. And she provides opportunities for our students with disabilities to have job shadows. We want to make sure all of our juniors and seniors have an opportunity to do a job shadow before they graduate. Last year was very challenging with the pandemic. The kids couldn't go out and do job shadows. They had to do virtual job shadows, which is not ideal. So I'm excited to announce that this year we're back doing some in-person job shadows. So I just wanted to report out what we've been doing. So on October 7th, Goodwin University Advanced Manufacturing Lab came out to the school, and 11 students participated with them to talk about careers in manufacturing, so that was great. On October 27th, there was a virtual field trip to Manchester Community College, transition to college for students with disabilities, and we had 22 students participate in that, which was great. We had on 10/27, we did 4 students did a job shadow with a police officer from Rocky Hill Police Department. On November 11th, there was a virtual job shadow. 1 student participated with a sports psychologist. On November 16th, there was a job shadow with an athletic trainer from Rocky Hill High School and a district physical therapist. We had 2 students participate in that. We have upcoming on December 2nd, a job shadow scheduled with 1 student with a teacher at GMS. And we have another student scheduled to do a job shadow with our occupational therapist. And on December 14th, we have job shadows scheduled with Rissinger Orthodontics and Mission Fitness. We have 2 students scheduled. So I'm excited to announce that the kids are back doing in-person and still some virtual job shadows. So that's been great. I also wanted to report out, we have our students that are in our 18 to 22 off-site transition program, and they luckily have been doing activities all along. Last year they went out, but I'll have a slideshow for you in December showing you some of the activities that they've participated in. But on November 5th, they went to Lassard Lanes, who opened up the bowling alley for us and some area transition academies, and they had the whole thing to themselves. They had a great time. You'll have pictures in December. November 10th, they were able to participate in in-person Unified Sports Virtual Youth Summit at the high school, which I didn't make it to, but I heard it was amazing. November 12th, they went to the New England Air Museum. And tomorrow, we have our Friendsgiving, so we're having a Thanksgiving celebration with Weathersfield, Newington, so some other area transition programs are coming. I am attending. Miss Herman, Special Education Director, is also attending, so I'm sure you'll be seeing pictures of that in our December board meeting. So just wanted to report out on that. Any questions for me about any of those activities that our students are participating in?
Any questions for Ms. Stevenson? Hearing none? Okay, thank you for that great report.
Yep.
All right, moving on. Item 10, Assistant Superintendents for Finance and Operations. Mr. Zettigren.
Okay. Enclosed in your board packet is the financial report through the month ending October 2021. In my report, I have highlighted some of the line items that we will be keeping a close eye on as we progress throughout the year. We have met with each of the principals and administrators and reviewed their budget requests with them. We have begun putting together our preliminary budget numbers and prioritizing which initiatives and resources to include in our budget for the 2022-23 school year. We anticipate that the auditors will be in next week to complete their audit of the state EFS data, which is the state education finance system. That's part of our overall audit that gets completed each year. I just wanted to report out that the bus transportation parent app implementation has been delayed, unfortunately, due to the server where it will reside not scheduled to be delivered until the end of December. Unfortunately, that got delayed due to the supply chain issues that have ongoing. Once the server arrives, there will be some setup time required, so we anticipate that the app will be up and running sometime early January. That's the goal right now. I know there's some parents who are anxiously awaiting that, and I apologize for that delay. We also have some supply chains affecting or impacting our school lunch program. Plastic and paperware items are in short supply, and certain food items are scarce, causing menu planning and reliability issues. Staff are working hard to limit any negative impact this may have on the program, and to date, hopefully nobody's seen, a major impact in that area. So hopefully we're able to not have that going forward. But I just wanted to report out on that. And that concludes my report. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions from any board members for Mr. Zediger? Chuck, I have actually two questions. When we convene our finance committee for the first meeting, does it make sense to start talking about some reallocations to the budget to cover the shortfall with the substitute teachers? At this time, are we expecting any additional grants or anything to make up for this? Because it is quite a shortfall we're projecting right now.
Right. Typically, what I will do is look within our operating budget. I could come forward at the finance committee meeting to let the board know what those recommendations will be.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to start putting some recommendations on the table now, even if we don't cover all of it, at
Yep.
least start to cover some of it, because that is quite a shortfall. And then the last thing, in regards to the bus tracking app, I'd like to discuss whether or not we're owed a credit for the first half of this year if we don't have one.
Yep.
That was a requirement in the contract.
That's correct.
So I would like to discuss if we're going to receive a credit for the first half of the year,
Yep.
since it is not up and running.
Yeah, I've started those conversations.
Okay, so I think those are certainly two things that we should be discussing at the first finance committee meeting.
Will do.
Excellent, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Zedegren? Hearing none, we will move on to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Ms. Listro.
All right. Good evening, everyone. At your seats, you all have a copy of this year's assessment data report. And I'm just going to slowly walk you through what it means for us this year. All right, so for anybody who's new to the board, every fall I will present your annual summative assessment update, and it includes the results from the spring assessments for Smarter Balance, NGSS, and SAT. This year, I am actually only going to report on the SAT for a couple of reasons having to do with comparability concerns with the Smarter Balance and the NGSS tests, which I'm going to talk to in a minute. So just a little bit of refresher. The State Department of Education did receive a waiver for the past 2 years to not have to administer state testing and not hold districts accountable for accountability. This is why in 2019-2020, we did not administer any of the tests to the students. However, last year, our State Department decided that they would ask all districts to continue assessing students regardless of the waiver, and Rocky Hill did comply with that request. Things to know about what made this past spring's administration different. First of all, you'll remember that we were fully remote from mid-March through mid-June of 2020, which of course affected student instruction. And last year, districts across the state offered the remote learning option. And the in-person learning, I think we'd all agree, was not the same as one would consider. And as anybody who followed the news and the happenings last year in districts, there was a lot of stress and anxiety experienced within different communities caused by the pandemic. So with those considerations in mind, it raised some concerns for being able to report on the Smarter Balance and the NGSS scores. So last year, students were allowed to take both the NGSS and the SBAC at home. And as you can imagine, they did not have the usual standard test security procedures in place when you're testing in your own home. So what the state found when they did their disaggregation of the data over the summer was that there were statistically significant differences between the results of students that tested at home, the ones that tested remotely, and the in-person results. And those results were noted in all grades for mathematics and in grade 3 for ELA. Therefore, since it's almost impossible to draw meaningful conclusions, they are not recorded in tonight's presentation. So the state has developed a new system to report on the scores from last year. And what they did is they used our attendance data. So throughout last year, if students were attending school at home remotely, when teachers took attendance, there was a special code that recorded them as present but remote present. And they did the same for in-person learners. And then there was another code, so those two codes combined to make the third bucket, which is hybrid. So what the state did is it looked at the attendance data, and it determined that if the student attended school in person for 75% or more days, they would be considered an in-person learner, and their test scores would be grouped into that category. If the students attended 25 to 70% of the time in person, then their scores would be considered hybrid. And then students who were mostly remote, that means that they were only 25% in person or less, they were considered a remote learner. And in your packet, I actually listed what the calculation is based on the Rocky Hill calendar from last year. So students who attended school 122 days or more were considered in person. And then at the opposite end, students who only attended for less than 41 were considered remote. And then you have the students in the middle. So although some of this is just common sense, I just feel the need to mention that how the students learned, right, depended on if they were in person, hybrid, or remote, varied across our whole district and across the state. Who and how many students learned in each of those buckets were also varied across the school and across the districts. And different districts changed their learning mode. As many of you know, some districts started off hybrid, some went fully remote. So because of all of that variability, we do have to make any comparisons that we draw tonight, we have to keep them in check because there are just so many variables to contend with. All right, that said, quick review of what the SAT scores mean. So I provided a little summary chart for you. You've got 4 different levels, and you've got their cut scores explained to you. And again, the SAT was the only test that was actually administered in school. So we had even remote learners come into Rocky Hill High School to take this test, and they were all safe. We had spaces set up for them in the gym and the multi-purpose room. And that's why we feel very comfortable reporting on the SAT data, because that was a consistent across all the districts, all of the high schools across the state. All the high school students took the test in their high school. So let's begin by looking at the evidence-based reading and writing scores. In your packet, you will see this data presented as a fold-out chart so that you can look at all the districts across the row. And I'll just walk you through section by section. So there you see the number of students who participated in each of the 3 buckets. So you have the fully and mostly in-person group, you have the hybrid group, and you have the fully mostly remote group. And if you look at just the in-person students first, I am proud to report Rocky Hill has the highest average scale score for the SAT. So that's excellent news, and you may be wondering, why are there only a handful of districts reporting in the in-person mode? That's because Rocky Hill was only a handful of districts last year that made the decision to remain in person, while the other districts either started in hybrid or started remote. And as you can see, you should feel very proud of that decision because it paid off in terms of our high school scores. Looking at the next column, the hybrid column. Again, you can see our scores are excellent. Rocky Hill, again, is at the top for the percentage of students scoring at level 3 or level 4. That is the passing cut mark. And we had 79.5% of our students meeting that goal. So a lot to be proud of. In the remote learning bucket, again, you can see that Rocky Hill is the highest scoring district with regard to students and their average score, their average scale score. Rocky Hill scored at a 533, and all of the other districts are in the 400s or below 530s. So much to be proud of for reading. Let's take a look at math. In math, for our in-person students, again, you can see we are first in our JERG with students having the highest average scale score on math in the SAT. In the hybrid category, Rocky Hill, again, is a top performer in both the category of looking at the percentage of students meeting the goal, which is level 3 or level 4. And we are also the highest performer with average scale score amongst all of our JERG counterparts. And in our last category, the students who were mostly remote learners in 11th grade in math, again, Rocky Hill outperformed all the other districts with the highest average scale score. So very, very impressive results from our 11th graders, and a lot to be proud of. I can get to my, wait. Hold on. Thank you. All right. And really, I have to just, there we go. All right. And of course, the credit goes to everybody. For the board for making the hard decision to stay open for the whole year. As you can see from these results, it really paid off for our students and our student learning. And from our curriculum leaders who are here with me tonight, Mary Schaefer, the language arts coordinator, Paige Weaver, the math coordinator, who worked with our high school teachers throughout the summer and throughout the school year to make sure our curriculum was implemented to the best of our ability in making sure it was meeting the needs of our students. So thank you to both of you. And our administrators, the school-based administrators, central office staff, everybody really chipped in last year to make it all come together and make it all work. And on the front line, those teachers who, as you know, were doing double duty. They were teaching synchronously last year. They were tweaking the curriculum, supporting students in whatever way they could. And it really took the entire team, I think, to get results as impressive as these from our district. So kudos to everybody. It's really a team effort this year.
Excellent. Yeah, on behalf of the board, I think I would just like to echo that sentiment to our administrative team, our Board of Ed, and our teachers. Fabulous job throughout the pandemic. We maintained the stance of keeping the schools open. We continued to provide synchronous learning, as difficult as it was. But I think as a district, our teachers, our administrators, our leadership all did the best that they could do for the students at Rocky Hill, and those results were presented here tonight. So kudos to everyone for all of their efforts that they put in throughout this entire time. Thank you so much for that. It's a great report to see. So excited to see that. If we could open the floor up, any questions from any board members regarding the data and the presentation? Oh, we have one question.
I
Ms.
have one
Tucker.
question. Can you explain the participation percentage? So is that, so if I'm looking at the mostly in person, it's 90%. Does that mean 10% chose not to take the exam?
So the total number was, according to the state, all of the students that were in membership in Rocky Hill in each of those categories. So that's why there's a different percentage for each category. And yes, we did, many of the districts, we did have a handful of students that did not take the test.
Okay.
We gave them the option, and many of the families that chose that option felt that things were very stressful for their child. They all had a lot of personal reasons, and some families did choose not to test. And if you look down the list, you'll see that that is consistent with many, many other districts.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any additional questions for Ms. Listro? I have one from a data perspective I'd like to ask you, please. Looking at the evidence-based reading and writing, going to the hybrid section,
Yes.
Rocky Hill was number 1 in terms of percentage at level 3 and 4 results.
Yes.
But in terms of average SAT score, I noticed that East Lyme and Stonington were slightly higher. So does that mean that there was more of a deviation within the band of test scores? Is that?
Exactly.
Okay.
So in those districts, most likely they had probably a handful of students that raised their mean average, and in Rocky Hill,
And a few that
that's
brought
right,
it down.
yeah.
Correct. Okay. Excellent. Thank you. All right. Any additional questions?
Just a comment.
Dr. Zito.
Yeah, the other thing that I draw your attention to is the importance of in-person learning. It's not causality, but you can certainly draw a correlation. The kids who came to school most of the time, if you look at both scores for all the districts, really, those kids tended to score higher than the kids either hybrid or remote. So I think the report, even with the state averages, kind of underscores the importance of in-person learning. So again, credit to the board, because you were one of the few boards in the state that opened school in person for all kids on day 1. Virtually everybody was hybrid last year to start. So just underscores how important it is to come to school every day.
Very good point. Very good point. Ms. Listro, thank you for that presentation. That was excellent.
Thank you.
If I could follow up too with a comment.
Yeah.
I don't have any questions, thank you. But just, I'm obviously new to the board, but as a parent, I mean, obviously, my kids were in school throughout that period, and in talking with a lot of other parents, I think it's, there's nobody here to say it, but I know that there are a lot of parents that are thankful for the decisions that were made in keeping the schools open, and for the administrators, for the teachers. I think it was you guys did an amazing job, so I know, just want to say thank you from the parents, because I know that there is that sentiment out there.
Excellent. Before we move on, any final comments? Hearing none, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Dr. Zito.
Okay, a couple of quick items. First of all, welcome to our new board members, to your first regular board meeting. I know you've all been sworn in, and you had your first meeting where you elected your officers, but this is your first time with this vast audience here to see you tonight. And just on behalf of our staff, we look forward to working with all of you, both our returning members and our new members. I want to thank Ms. Listro and her team for that report. Again, we're very pleased with the high school students' performance on the 2021 SAT. I really want to acknowledge the kids, because they're the ones who earn the scores. And then secondly, their teachers, who work really hard with them every day. It's really great to see that pay off, to have us again at the tip-top of the district reference group in terms of those scores, because they're important. Those are high-stakes tests. And like Darlene said, with the NGSS and the SBAC, the state itself came out and said there's nothing really reliable. Our kids did fine. We can get into those details if we want to with the curriculum committee, but there's really 6 buckets of scores at the lower grade levels, and with the tests at home, there were no controls in place. So the one thing we can count on in terms of comparisons with other districts is that SAT. Because it's a college high-stakes test, every kid had to come and take it under the same conditions in the school. So that's where you can draw the meaningful comparisons. The other stuff, it's COVID. We understand that. We did it. The kids participated. We generally saw throughout the state that the kids who took the test at home without the controls in place did much better than the kids who took it in person. I'll make no further guesses as to why. I have my own theories, but I'll keep them to myself. Other things to talk about. A couple of things. As we head into next week, I want to wish everybody a happy and enjoyable Thanksgiving break. The staff's doing a great job. We're back, 100% of the kids in person. It's going well. You'll start your budget meetings in late January. Chuck, we usually get the board members their initial draft of the budget a week or so before the first meeting. So
Right. And we
by
usually-
mid-January, you'll get a very thick what's called the superintendent's proposal. That's the initial draft of the budget, and then that's when we'll come in, we'll present that, and you'll basically have 2 or 3 nights. Brian will determine whether or not you need a third night. That's really up to the chair. But we'll work through it. It's been pretty efficient for a number of years. But we try to get you that book a week or so in advance so that you have an opportunity to get questions to us in advance. So that's something that's really your first big homework assignment on the board. And then 2 other quick notes. The graduation, we normally lock in earlier. The reason we had to wait till tonight is Christine was working with Laura Francesco at the high school. We're locked in now for June 18th at Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, which was a really nice ceremony last year. Maria's son, she could speak to experience, graduated last year at the stadium. Corinne Roybal, who was on the board, her daughter as well. So that's a really nice evening. It's a
Nancy Rolfe.
Twins. Nancy, you're the twins last year. Okay.
Yeah,
All right. So you were there too. So it's a great ceremony. The 18th is for the day. We're locked in for that morning, I believe.
Yeah.
The rain date is the 19th, which is in the evening.
okay.
So we got that locked in, and again, we
Saturday.
apologize for the delay on that, but Central informed us at the beginning of the year. They were wishy-washy, and then they said, we're not doing graduations this year, we can't commit. So we wanted to get that date locked in. So hopefully the weather will be good, because it was a really nice ceremony last year. And then the only other comment is Tuesday, December 14th, we have that workshop with Tom Mooney and Natalia Sierra Milan from Shipman and Goodwin. And I would encourage all the board members to be there, but it's particularly important for the newly elected board members, because it really is an overview on your role and responsibility from the legal perspective as elected officials responsible for education. So that's my update.
All right. Any questions from any board members for Dr. Zito? All right, hearing none, we will move on to the chairman's report. All right, I'd like to start by number one, thanking everyone and congratulating you for being elected to the Board of Education. As Dr. Zito said, this is our first official meeting, so welcome to the Board of Education. I look forward to working with each and every one of you over the next 2 years. Committee chairs, as a reminder again, please reach out to the assistant superintendent or superintendent that is your point of contact so that we can begin coordinating with the members of each subcommittee and scheduling meetings. I'd like to get some of that started in the very near future. Finance and I believe policy. Ms. Flynn has said we have a number of changes to make based on Shipman and Goodman's updates, so we want to get going with that. Again, I'd like to congratulate Ms. Listro and her team for all of her efforts in regards to the SAT scores that were presented tonight. That's fabulous news for the town of Rocky Hill. I'd also like to congratulate Ms. Listro again on all of her efforts for the CAVE Leadership Award that the board was recently recognized for. Dr. Zito and Ms. Listro put a lot of effort and time into preparing that application, and it was a pleasure to see that the Board of Education for the town of Rocky Hill was recognized for their efforts. Two other items. There's been some questions on the school reopening committee. I anticipate that we will have the committee reconvene sometime in January and then again in February if we get additional guidance from the state. There was some questions regarding PTO meetings and other adult groups using the schools. Dr. Zito has confirmed after our last meeting that we can start scheduling and opening up the schools for those groups as long as they are adult-centered groups functioning with school or recreational activities. There were also some questions about CIAC and sports. There has been no guidance released yet, I understand, and Dr. Zito, you can chime in as well, regarding winter sports yet. So until there is guidance handed down from the CIAC, we can't proceed to make any board decisions regarding attendance at winter sports.
I called the executive director myself 2 days ago, Glenn Lungarini, and they're getting to it as quickly as they can, but they're working through the various levels of the state government, including the DPH. So we're still waiting on those guidelines to come out regarding winter sports.
Okay.
But all sports are on, I will say that.
They are on. It's the attendance issue that's being worked
At
out.
this point, most of the districts in our area are sticking with the board's current policy, which we have right now, which is 2 adults for each of our home athletes and siblings, as long as they remain with their parents. So, you know, everybody wants to see kids play, but we want mom and dad to get the first opportunity to see their kids play and participate. So I don't know if that's going to change much. The negative right now is we're starting to see the numbers climb. Amy is, she's managing that dashboard, and we're into the high 30s at this point in quarantine. 3 weeks ago, I think it was 6 kids. So unfortunately, it's starting to trend in the wrong direction again. And, you know, the primary goal is to keep the schools open.
Absolutely.
Everything else is fantastic. I'm a strong believer in co-curricular activities. And as Joe Horvath has told the kids constantly, you know, I'd rather have you play than eat. When they're asking, can we have a pizza party? Can we do this? I'd rather have you compete than eat. That's his kind of mantra with the kids. And we just found out that somebody sent me an article today. Bacon Academy's football season is over. They don't get to play their final game. That just got shut down. So we're doing everything we can to keep the kids involved. And I know it doesn't make the community happy when I have to say no to certain things, but it's because we want the kids to be able to do their things.
All right, and my last thing for tonight is I just wish each and every one of you a happy Thanksgiving with your family and friends. Please enjoy it, and we will have our next meeting in December. With that being said, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ms. Tucker. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. Have a good evening, everyone.
All right. For subcommittee dates. Whoa.